Oh yeah, friends and fam. Welcome back to another episode of Captain Coleslaw Outdoors with yours truly. So today on Summer Shoot, we are out here looking for some snapshots from cameras, some trail cameras that we put out in the woods in order to try to determine the wildlife that's using the certain area. When it comes to archery hunting later this year, we'll be hunting pretty heavily. What I want to do in this episode is a little reveal. I want to do some trail camera maintenance. I'm going to make sure that the batteries are good, check cards, switch cards out, and then we'll end the episode by taking our cards in to my office and seeing what kind of wildlife is moving in front of the cameras. So when it comes to running trail cameras, there's a couple rules that I like to follow. So for one, I put these trail cameras out early in the summer, and then I let them go for multiple months at a time. These cameras have been out here for almost 2 months. 2 of them are on salt blocks in order to help provide these deer with nutritional needs during a hot summer, and one of them is on a travel corridor where I suspect deer are moving naturally. So the general location where these cameras are located is on a south-facing slope, and they're located on something geographically known as a bench. So a bench is a flattened piece of land that runs perpendicular to a slope. And on this particular piece, we're looking at an extremely steep little embankment. And that bench runs perpendicular, and it's a perfect place for wildlife to travel on a steep slope where they feel safe. That way, if trouble comes from below, they can just run up the mountain, and if trouble comes from above, they can disappear below off of the bench. So this is a great place to find wildlife, whether they be deer, turkeys, predators, or other species. So we're going to go out and we're going to check 3 cameras along this bench. The reason that I've chosen today is because there's about to be a huge rainstorm later, which is going to just completely wash out our scent, so these deer don't learn about how we walked in on the terrain, and it doesn't ruin their travel patterns in relationship to where the salt and tree stands in the area are. So we're going to go in, we're going to get these cameras, machete some trails as well, so the deer have a nice travel corridor through the thick vegetation, and we'll talk about some of the wildlife that we get on camera here as soon as we retrieve the cameras. So here's our first spot. You can see the salt that we've put in the log here in order to attract the deer, and man, they've really worked over this area. Look at how clear out it is around this log. And then up on the tree, there's the camera. So we're going to pull the card out of that camera, and then we're going to take that one back and see what the wildlife using the salt lake looks like. $5,495 pictures. Holy cats, is it humid. There's definitely rain coming. And it's good that we got those cameras out, because a few of them were running out of battery power. So we're going to get back to the house and pull up the computer and see what's running around in these woods. Might need a glass of water too. Shoot. Got my water. Got some light. Got my computer. And we got our 3 SD cards that came out of the cameras today. The idea of this is each of these cards is in a very specific geographic and ecological location, which might attract different wildlife or wildlife at different times based off of the landscape dynamics and how it strategically plays to the animal. So if we can look at 2 months of patterns of how these animals are using the landscape, we can get a better idea and prediction on how we are going to hunt them later in the year. Now, you can't hunt over salt in Pennsylvania, so we will have to remove that salt 30 days before the hunting season. So we really want to get an idea of what these deer are doing now, so when we get back in there and remove all the salt, we have an idea of how those animals are going to be using the terrain before we get out there and start hunting them. So without further ado, let's put in these cards, and I'll explain why each location is the way it is, and we'll see what wildlife is using the landscape. So this first card location that we're going to look at was the last card you saw me pull, which was travel corridor. So the reason we put this card there was no bait, there's no feed, there's no food source attracting the animals to this area. But rather, there's a thicket. So this is the lower slope side of the bench. And these animals have created a game trail that runs this edge. And there's steep, rocky cliff outfaces that you'll see in the video. Just like boulders and stuff, which run on the upslope side of this very narrow piece of the bench. So we'll see what's using this narrow little pathway. It's probably a very appealing spot to the wildlife because it's very concealed. So these animals feel very safe using this travel area. So let's see what we got on the stealth cam. We got 24 videos. So let's see what we got. Oh, fox right off the bat. There's no timestamp on the video, but it's in the dark, so looks like we got a fox using this path. Alright, well, the camera works. And it works in low light, which is good to note. We got a little doe. Actually, it's a pretty large doe. Another doe moving. Got another doe moving through here. Oh, baby. That's a nice looking buck there. Oh, that's a big buck. That buck is wide and young. But that's a good looking deer right there. Hard to tell, but it looks like this is really early on in the process. I think this deer is going to be a giant. Oh my God, he's wide. Yeah, so this little buck here is moving with the big guy, and the big guy is already blown up. And then the small buck here following him, who's going to be a nice buck. Maybe not a huge one, but a nice one, is walking up with him. Oh my gosh. Didn't even need to bait him. Alright, so camera number one. The best thing that we can take away from this camera, there ain't a whole lot of deer using this trail, but there is a particular set. Small home ranges are what these deer are typically having here in the summertime, and does have a smaller range than bucks, which would make sense because we saw the same giant doe on this camera 4 or 5 times, and we only saw those bucks one time. This seems to be this big doe's home range here, and she's kind of the sole proprietor. But later in the year, that could change. But in the summer, when it's hot and these deer have food everywhere, they don't have to move far. So this deer clearly is the dominant animal in this area, and that's what we can take away from this little trail. Alright, now we're on to card number 2. So card number 2 is the salt, which is actually right up a deep ravine which runs perpendicular to the bench. That bench is such a heavy travel corridor that the deer will run a deep creek that runs up from that, so we get an idea of who's living below and who's living along the bench itself. There are a ton of photos here. These are photos, this isn't video. Squirrel, got a doe, so these do have timestamps, so we know exactly when these deer are moving through. Got some raccoons. Oh, doe fawn, very cool. There's a little buck. Not going to be a shooter by any means, but will be an interesting little deer to check out. Looks like it's going to be a non-typical buck. His antlers don't really match each other. He's going to be a weird one. Squirrel, doe's back in the dark. Huh, rabbit. How about that? A little hopping cottontail rabbit. Couple bunny rabbits trying to get at the salt. More doeage. Does. Seems to be a very localized group of resident deer using this spot. And at least the deer look healthy. I mean, these deer look so healthy and happy. Oh my, look at this guy. This is a buck, but this is a weird buck. This is a non-typical. Yeah, he's weird. He's trashy. This buck is going to be a strange one. Wow, look at that horn. This is only on the 18th. I mean, he ain't an old buck, but he's going to be a weird-looking buck. Kind of cool. Calling this guy hand horn. Every animal needs salt during the heat. The salt actually acts like an electrolyte, which allows these animals to keep their bodies cool and keep their blood pressure moving throughout their bodies. So it's the same way as an athlete. You need salt in your blood to produce a concentration gradient of thicker blood and thinner blood, and the thicker blood pushes the thinner blood back to the heart so it can get oxygenated. That's why these deer and all these animals need salt. They need the salt in order to allow their blood pressure to maintain a good, healthy balance as they sweat, and their heat of their bodies requires more and more and more fluid and salt concentration to keep moving because they become dehydrated and they need salt to counteract the water that they drink. So we're getting to a point now where our bucks are starting to grow their horns more and more. Holy crap. Tank is a giant. Oh my god. Oh my god. Tank is a split G2 monster. No, G3. Bro, this buck is a monster. This buck is an absolute monster. Oh my god. I'll send that one to my dad. Well, this deer is my target. There is no other deer I will shoot. This is the animal. He is king. And he's got a little buddy who's going to be a good buck too. This deer is an absolute freak. Jesus Pete. And his buddy's a nice deer. His buddy is a nice buck too. This buck's going to be absolutely, oh my god. This is the deer I've been fighting to get a shot at for years, and he is a giant. Oh my god. This deer is 6 years old. I've seen this deer every single year since I started living here. His body is enormous. His rack is going to be absolute mammoth. I cannot wait to see this tank buck later this summer, and maybe even in the fall. Here's another nice looking buck. This is another good buck right here. A little bit narrow, probably going to be a small 7-point. It's blind in one eye. Old blindy. Yeah, that eye, he got gored out in a fight or something. Crazy, dude. There are deer everywhere. Wow. The heat has got these animals all over these salt licks. I mean, more than one species. Tons of foxes. Look at this fox here. This guy killed something. He killed a squirrel. Oh my gosh. This fox caught a squirrel at the salt lick. This is so crazy. I got 3 days left on this camera, and I don't want it to end. Never had. Oh! A doe with triplets? This has been the single best trail camera that I've ever had. I've never had this much luck. That is just stupid incredible. So that bench and that pinch point is just the money spot. Like, that's just where the deer are. That's insane. It's insatiable to me. We have this last camera, which is down at the back of the ridge, if you will, all the way down the bench, and it's where the bench tapers to a point and goes up a steep side, bench ends. So this is where those deer are going to come off that top, and they're going to come off that bottom onto the bench. So this is like a funnel point where all the deer running west on this ridge meet up. Alright, let's see what we got here. There's a buck. There ain't many deer that big that live on this property. There's another buck with it. Oh, baby. There he is. Wow, he's huge. He's huge. Oh my goodness. The deer's going on the wall if I manage to kill him. Looks like a doe with a fawn. Weird. Not going to be a huge buck, but You gotta love when they give you a face in the camera like that. Shoot. Oh yeah, I got twin small bucks. Cool images. Very cool. That buck's gonna be goofy. Just goofy enough that you might have to take a shot at him if you get a chance. But I say that now, but with Tank, there ain't no way we're shooting that little buck. That's the problem. These bucks, they live here. They are here 100% of the time, all the time. Oh, hey. Oh, man, when you realize that surveillance has been busted. Oh, boy. Now, there's a better looking buck. That guy is that... Oh, that's Blindy. That's the blinded one-eye buck. Oh, there's Tank. Looking stupendous and magnificent. He's really coming into his own. Like, each time we see these pictures, you can see how fast their horns grow. Deer antler is one of the fastest growing biological substances in the animal kingdom. And you can just tell. I mean, he's so much bigger each time we see him. And it's only June 27th. He's going to get another 3-4 inches on all his horn before it's time to take it all off. He's here in the AM, he's here in the PM. This is his home. And looking just bigger and bigger every time I see him. Notice this subordinate buck will not come to the salt if Tank is there. He knows he'll get a butt kick because that is the king of the hill. That is the single best. Well, it's about to storm. How about that? Single best trail camera run I've ever had. Tons of legal deer, triplet deer, lots of other wildlife, photos everywhere. You'll pick a good day to tune in to Captain Coleslaw Outdoors and watch my first ever trail cam reveal. This is insane. It's immaculate. We will do another one of these right before hunting season begins in order to get an idea of how the behavior of these deer have changed between now and then. But one thing is for certain. Right now, they're here. And they're big. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Captain Coleslaw Outdoors. Please like and subscribe if you like this content. Until next time, fellas, shoot straight, stay strong. That's it. I'm out. Catch you on the next one.